now, and now I'm 100% and fully focused on boxing and family.
Derek James, your trainer, said in an interview that you hit harder now after the accident than what you did before. Is that true, Errol?
I'm a little rejuvenated now, and I'm ready to get back in there, and I'm probably hitting hard now because I'm more excited now, and I'm ready to get back in the swing of things. I'm ready to fight, and I'm actually looking forward to a training camp, and looking forward to getting in the top shape and looking good, just like how I was when I was 5-0 and I was coming up the ranks, and I didn't have a world title yet, so. It feels real good just to be, 100%, refocused on boxing. But I respect his skill set. He got good skills, but I think I definitely stop him, especially how focused I am right now. Because, usually, even the Sean Porter fight, I was blowing up to, when Sean Porter and the Mike Garcia fight. Matter of fact, the Mike Garcia fight, the day of the weigh-ins, I had to sit in a sauna for 2 hours. I didn't sweat.
Really?
And I had a sauna bag on and everything, and I didn't sweat till probably an hour to being in the sauna, and I didn't sweat at all. Even the Sean Porter fight, I had blown up to 190 or something like that, and then had to lose it all, then killing myself to make weight.
Why was that, Errol? Why was it? I mean, look, I know that your persons have gone up and stuff. I mean, is it that you're eating some really good steaks and some fine dining? I mean, is that why?
I'm just getting too comfortable. Getting way too comfortable. Eating a lot. I think Marvin Hagler one that said that it's hard to get up. When you're in silk sheets.
When you're sleeping in silk sheets and it's hard to wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. So, I feel like, my car accident was a wake up call from God, telling me to, really, focus and, bite down and, refocus on what's going on. And I feel like I wasn't as focused as I am now. It's kind of from the Kell Brook fight or before that, how focused I am now. I'm really trying to put my all into it because I got a lot of stuff to prove people wrong. It's a lot of things that people been saying and, YouTube, or is he still going to be the same? Can he fight the same? Is his reflex still going to be the same? So I still got a lot to prove that in the ring and to prove to other people that, I'm still the same Errol Spence.
I had blown up to 190 or something like that.
We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxingego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. The fans of Boxingego have spoken. You guys asked for a part 2, so I'm back with a part 2. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. The biggest fight in boxing coming up this weekend. Errol Spence, hey, stop that cat. Yes, definitely. Versus Terence Bud Crawford. July 29th, in the words of Highlander, there can be only one. Now, I made a video about Terence Crawford and his weight cut. I definitely have some questions. Over 30,000 of you guys clicked on that video, so I want to say shout out to you guys for helping encourage the channel in the ways that you can. Please check out that video, part 1, and this is part 2. So I want to say this. In that video, I posed some questions. To me, it looks like Terence Crawford's weight cut is rough. Either he arrived at the weight too prematurely, too early, aka like an overtrained type of scenario, or he still has weight to lose, but his face was looking ghastly and pretty gaunt, and this was only Tuesday at the Grand Arrivals, or when he briefly showed and made an appearance with Ray Flores again the next day at the undercard media day workout. He answered some questions. More so the Grand Arrivals than the undercard appearance. Terence Crawford, just low energy. His team was very boastful and adamant that Errol Spence was a manufactured PBC Showtime fighter. Basically, you would say a paper champion. You know, if someone's saying you're manufactured and you had a machine behind you and things like that, then that very well means that they don't believe in you like that. So with all these names that Team Crawford has called Errol Spence, it seems like Crawford is trying to pull out the stops to the point of maybe even overtraining, you know, trying to beat him. So that says a lot more than what's being said in the interviews by his team. Now, in that first video, again, apparently it ruffles some feathers. Listen, my job is to cover boxing, and I do that excellently. So I gave you my honest assessment on Terence Crawford. Something seems up. Maybe the moment's too big. Maybe he cut weight too quick. Maybe he's overtrained or weight drained. I don't know. Something seems up. His energy seems different. His team's energy seems different. Seems somber and melancholy. For more on that, check out part 1 of this video. It seems that some boxing fans wanted me to, quote, go in on Errol Spence and call him weight drained or have these same speculations because I made a video about Terence Crawford. And that's the funny thing with boxing fans. They treat this like this is a gang, like this is Crips and Bloods. This is my own personal opinion. This is my channel. I built this alongside with great fans in Ego's Army. So you're not going to force me off of my position and knock me off my pivot and make me feel what you want me to feel. That's never going to be the case. If you think that will ever be the case on my channel, you might as well unsubscribe right now. For the rest that care about my opinion on Boxingego, the video you clicked on, I'll explain why I'm not so much worried about Errol Spence's weight cut. Even though there's many people and say they're saying everything I'm saying about Crawford's weight cut, they are saying to Errol Spence. And I tell you guys all the time, boxing fans go for the low-hanging fruit. Errol Spence has told you he's a big dude. He's been at around this weight class since pretty much the Olympics or the amateurs, and he's going to move up. But he couldn't move up, or he chose not. He guessed technically he could have, but he chose not to move up until he goes for undisputed and fought Terence Crawford. The fans wanted it. You got to celebrate Errol Spence for making that decision, sticking around to handle this before he moves up. So to see Errol Spence's face start to become more slender as we near, that's not necessarily weight drain. Of course, if you're cutting weight, there's going to be some indication of it. Again, boxing fans don't know what they're talking about. Most don't know ish about boxing. So they're just merely going off the fact that he's a big dude and he's cutting. The reason why I'm not particularly worried about Errol's weight cut is because to me, it looks like one of the strongest and smoothest weight cuts that I've seen from Errol Spence in quite some time. In addition, that clip that I played, y'all must have forgot Roy Jones Jr. voice. At the beginning of this unpacked video, that was Errol Spence. For starters, you can look at his face. That was after the accident, and you can see that his face looked rounder and fuller. In that interview, PBC interview with Ray Flores, after his accident, he was telling you how he had to refocus on boxing because when he was training for the Olympics and the Kell Brook fight and things like that, he was solid. He started making millions, food, started getting to him, the party life, started getting to him, whatever, right? And he says he kind of lost his way and he would get to a point in his career where he was upwards of 180 pounds, touching 190 pounds in his off season. Basic arithmetic, if he was weighing 190 pounds and he had to cut to 147 and touch 147 pounds on that scale, then that means the man had to lose almost 45 pounds in order to make weight for said fights. And again, if you listen to what he says he was 190 and for Mikey Garcia and Sean Porter fight. So two on paper tough fights. He had to crunch his body down 43 pounds in order to make those weights. So Errol Spence, he's been at welterweight. He's had the trial and error in his career the peaks and valleys, if you will, the car accident, the not managing his weight and being disciplined for a moment. You know, he told you. He said this in several interviews. He says when he was fighting Kell Brook, you know, everything was dialed in. But after he became a champion and kept whooping dudes and stuff like that, maybe he became lackadaisical in terms of what he was doing. And slowly but surely, he told you in several interviews, Errol Spence said it took him longer and longer and longer to get back into the gym after each fight versus earlier parts of his career, he would have a fight, but then he wouldn't stay too far away from the gym. And then that coupled with the fact that he was probably partying, drinking, eating, you know, whatever, like not eating like a clean diet and stuff like that. And he started tipping the scales at 190 pounds. So Errol Spence, we know that about his journey. We know he's been a welterweight, and we know he's a full-fledged welterweight on the verge of possibly moving up to 154 pounds. So I'm absolutely not concerned about Errol Spence's weight and his weight cut. You know why? Because like I said, he told you he was 190 coming down to 147, which is 43 pounds. When they first started promoting this fight, they did a press tour in Los Angeles and then one in New York. They had Errol Spence and Terence Crawford take their shirts off at this said press conference when they were shooting the behind the scenes promotional material that they would later use. And you can tell Errol Spence was already in shape. So these long negotiations, he had negotiations with Crawford last year. They went nowhere. And then Terence Crawford pulled out and said, I'm fighting David Avanesian, and I'm doing that on a completely different network, right? Instead of sticking with the program. That left Errol Spence out to dry. They tossed around the idea of Errol Spence possibly fighting against Keith one-time Thurman, and ultimately he got an offender bender, which postponed the announcement of that fight. And then by that time, Crawford had already beaten David out. He had already beaten David Avocado, so he was able to re-enter negotiations. Errol Spence seen that, didn't really want to fight Keith Thurman, previously had said he would never fight Keith Thurman, so he stayed in negotiations. I am of the belief that Errol Spence, this whole time, knew he was going to fight either Keith Thurman or Terence Crawford. So what he did was maintain his weight. So by the time the negotiations finally panned out and Terence B-side Bud Crawford was able to get what he wanted to be comfortable in signing the deal, and the deal was actually signed, sealed, and delivered, Errol Spence entered the promotion already with his weight maintained, as you guys see in the picture, and he was just in a far better spot, which is a far cry from where Errol Spence Jr. previously would start some of his camps, where he admitted, again, that he would weigh upwards of 185 to 190 pounds. In addition, Errol Spence has admitted that his camps in the past, it didn't sound like they were all the way professional. Yes, he had a professional trainer in Derek James, but it didn't seem like he had this same ecosystem. There were certain fighters that weren't in the gym, like Anthony Joshua and also Ryan Garcia, who were late adds to that gym. But more importantly, he told you he didn't have a nutritionist, which he later picked up after his accident. He got with a nutritionist, a guy named Elliot, who lives with Errol Spence for his camp and prepares his nutrition and his food, aka his fuel. So that is clutch, and that being an addition to Errol Spence's team, I'm sure is invaluable. I don't know what or who was preparing his food or what before, but to get someone who's an expert like a Chris Algieri or Elliot or James Lockwood or one of those type of dudes that train these Caleb plants or provide food and, you know, nutrition for these athletes and prepared meals and stuff, that's just one less thing to think about. You have to understand the life of a boxer is grueling. Errol got to spar. He got to get road work in and miles in, go to the gym. He's working with basically an aerobics dude for this Crawford camp. So he's doing his stretches. He also has to be a father, spend time with his kids. and sleep, rest and recovery, all these types of things. So the more you could take off your plate, the better. So I think that was hugely beneficial for Errol Spence. And that's why people want me to give the same criticism that I gave for Crawford's weight cut, which looks apparent that something's kind of amiss. They want me to be shocked by Errol Spence and say the same thing, but boxing doesn't work like that. I'm not going to just lie and say what you want me to say because you want me to say it. Again, I told you, I'm not worried about Errol Spence's weight cut because I've seen him cut down. Like, I've been to his fights and stood next to him after he weighed in, and there were some times where it looked real rough, where he looked kind of sucked up, like the Ocampo fight, right? And that being said, this whole fight week, he looks energetic, he looks lively, his eyes look alert, and he looked wide-eyed. He's not stuttering, and he's answering the questions well. They're not really these striking signs that something is wrong with his weight cut. Of course, it's a weight cut, so his face is going to slim out. You might see some indentation and stuff like that, but that's to be expected. But again, boxing fans don't know, so they go for the low-hanging fruit, and they see him getting skinnier, and then they just automatically say it's weight drained. But weight drained is much more than somebody's getting skinnier. It's how you're behaving. It's what is your body language? Do you look weak? Do you look feeble? What kind of eye contact or lack thereof do you have? The projection of your voice, right? These are some of the things, and I haven't really seen a problem with Errol Spence, but Crawford at the grand arrivals, low voice, face looking sunk in on a Tuesday. He's wearing a black hoodie and it's triple degree weather in Las Vegas. I'm having questions, point blank period. Again, I'm not questioning the guy who had trial and error and would weigh 190 pounds in the past and then have to almost lose 50 pounds. He started his camp in a much better position, so I would imagine this is an easier weight cut. Errol Spence, he's always been a hard worker, but he was doing himself a disservice by ballooning up in weight and getting too far away from his weight class. But now that he tamed that, he's matured. He has a son now. He has his beautiful daughters and family, and he went through that accident. We've seen a more disciplined Errol, which you guys heard at the beginning of this video. He told you. Errol Spence said, hey, I'm back refocused. I went through the accident. I learned what I learned, etc. And since the accident, for the Danny Garcia camp, for the Ugas, it kept getting better, and it's now crescendoing. Like, he didn't look bad at the media day for the Ugas fight either. Like, he looked jacked and in shape. But now that the opponent has been stepped up, it looks like his performance or, his preparation looks even better for this particular fight than the Danny Garcia fight or the Ugas fight. So people are looking at Errol and saying he's losing weight, he's weight drained, but it's just much more to being weight drained than, oh, he's losing weight. Of course he's losing weight. He has to hit the scale and weigh a certain number. But to me, it looks like his team did it in the best possible way. I've showed you guys videos of Errol Spence recently before his weight cut. I've seen some of his weight cuts, and they look pretty extreme. And this is not one of the more extreme ones where he looks gaunt. That looks like Crawford. Another reason this is alarming for Crawford is because you even have people who are leaving comments and saying, hey, Crawford looks sick. He looks weight drained. I never recall a previous Crawford fight where people were saying that. David Avanesian, Sean Porter, Crawford Mean Machine. I never recall, because Crawford was always considered kind of skinny. So what I believe is Crawford knew he was fighting Errol Spence at some point, and he got with snack and all this stuff, and he started to bulk up and bulk out. So unlike Errol Spence, he's not used to carrying as much bulk because he hasn't started his camps, from what I've seen, for those Mean Machine fights or when he was in lighter divisions. Of course, he wasn't as big as he looks in recent pictures when he first started this camp. He looked super muscular, and he looked like he had bulked up and put muscle mass on, right? But if he's fighting Hank Lundy, his starting point is going to be a lot lower because that fight was at a lower weight class versus even at his welterweight fights. I've been to some of his welterweight fights, like Jose Benavidez and Jeff Horn. he didn't look as big. Jeff Horn was his first fight at welterweight, and Jose Benavidez was his second fight at welterweight. So we've seen somebody who's considered kind of a skinny welterweight in Terence Crawford bulk up in size to the point where his face looks extremely full. And then you see the side-by-side picture, and you can see Terence Crawford's weight cut looks more extreme than we've seen for his other fights. That's why the concern is there for Crawford versus Errol Spence. Again, I don't know how many times I can say it, but why would I be worried about Errol Spence's weight cut when he was cutting from 190 to 147, and he at least started this promotion and this camp in far better shape? I'm showing you videos. You can see Errol Spence's face when he was at some of those higher 180, 190 weights and stuff like that. And it's a noticeable difference from what he started this particular camp at. Just to give you more examples, here's the side-by-side. This where he has the Gucci Adidas looking red shirt on. That's a recent interview with GQ magazine that Crawford did for this Errol Spence fight camp. And that is a picture of him in fight shape for a previous fight. And you can see that Terence Crawford's face looks a lot more slender in his past fights. Again, this is a guy who moves up, so it's not shocking that, you know, he looked lighter previously. Now, this is from Terence Crawford at the press tour for the Errol Spence fight. You can see he looks more muscular and bigger than I can ever recall him looking. So this is a guy who's not used to, or at least I'm not used to seeing his body have as much mass on it. That wasn't his bag. And it's funny because a lot of the people who are picking Crawford to beat Errol Spence, they said he does it with speed. They said he will do it because he's faster. He'll do it because of his footwork, because he's more dynamic, because he's a switch hitter. All of these things, and athleticism, all of these things can be negated by fundamentals, which Errol Spence has, but also they can definitely be stifled if you go in the wrong direction and you just start packing on pounds. It becomes harder and harder. Imagine weighing 220 pounds and you're trying to run real fast on the treadmill versus if you weighed 165. It's probably going to be easier because you have less pounds on you, right? So I don't know that the decision to bulk up and start the camp for Errol Spence quite so heavy for Crawford, I don't know if it's paying out because now he's had to do a more extreme weight cut than he's probably had to do previously. I'm not a big proponent of people who experiment in their biggest fights of their careers. This is definitely that for Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. But again, like I've said throughout this video, this is not Errol Spence's biggest weight cut because he didn't enter this camp at 190. Terence Crawford probably entered, I don't know how much he weighed, but he entered from the looks of it, from the ego eye test, ego Weight Watchers, aka ILL, Terence Crawford definitely entered the fight at a larger frame than I've ever seen. So I wouldn't be shocked. It wouldn't shock me if Terence Crawford was at a career high weight in terms of pre-camp weight that he's ever had. This looks like literally the biggest he's ever been. I don't know if he's planning on moving to 154 after, but this is truly the biggest I've ever seen him. And then he had to cut it to get back down to the 147. And the other thing, on top of him being a smaller fighter, which makes that weird, the simple fact that Errol Spence is the one with the inactivity. He's been out of the ring for over a year now. Terence Crawford just fought in December. So why does he look like you just had a camp to get to the December David Avanesian fight? So to me, I think just the whole weight cut looks pretty bizarre. I don't know if he's overtrained or weight drained or what, but to me, his weight cut looks weird. And I think the decision to keep Terence Crawford light would be the best decision to try to win. Like, you're going up against a guy who's naturally bigger. You can't necessarily compete in that arena, but if you're faster, if you're more athletic, those will be your strong suits. So I wouldn't worry so much about bulking up. They said Crawford has power and all knockouts at welterweight, so why does he need to add more muscle than he had for the Sean Porter fight to start the camp? Why does he need to look bigger than he was for the Jeff Horn fight or Mean Machine when that wasn't really his bag? You know, it reminds me of Wilder versus Fury 3, where Wilder added all this muscle, but you've seen Wilder look flat after he couldn't knock out Fury in the first couple rounds. His performance suffered and his endurance suffered. This is not a great opponent matchup, a guy like Errol Spence, to potentially have no legs because you're weight drained, or you cut too fast, or your endurance suffers. I mean, we'll see. Ultimately, we're going to see on Saturday, but that's for the people who are asking and want it to be tit for tat. Why did you make the video about Terence Crawford but not Errol Spence? Again, I'm not worried about Errol Spence's weight cut because he's cut from dang near 200 pounds to 147. So he's had those experiences. I don't know that Terence Crawford has had an experience where he started any of his welterweight fight camps at whatever weight he was, which was evident that it was bigger by these pictures that I've showed you. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. We Unpack mixed with Ego Weight Watchers, aka Ill, where I give you a look into the fighter lifestyle before after progress picks, especially when they have an upcoming fight. July 29th, that's gonna settle everything. Crawford, Tuesday, Wednesday, his face looked ghastly to me. And that's early in the fight week, and I've never seen that from Crawford. And again, he's a smaller guy. That's why it's concerning. Not so much concerned about the bigger guy who came from 190 for the Porter fight and the Mikey Garcia fight. As I showed you in the beginning of this video, we unpacked. Introducing Super Thanks. Right here on the official Boxingego YouTube. Super Thanks allows you, the viewers, to show a little bit of extra gratitude, which enables me as a full-time content creator to push out the content you need in the world of boxing. Underneath all the videos, you will see a heart with a $sign in it. You can enter any amount that you find suitable as a super thanks. A brand new interactive and colorful way to get your comments highlighted and noticed by not only myself, but other people on the YouTube platform. Super thanks, a unique and cool way to show and applaud us full-time content creators. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content. Super thanks. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster. We working.